Hello, hello, hello. This is the Spoil Rater channel where I spoil movies and rate performances. Now, hoping you're enjoying the new hairstyle. Just got it done on Sunday, so looking fabulous. So you're probably going to be seeing me with a different hairstyle with every other video. So, gotta change it up a bit. But anyways, this is not going to be a movie rating channel, but it will be based off the last movie I did when I talked about Ethel Waters' performance in Pinky. And in that movie, the theme was basically, the idea of the one drop rule and someone passing and someone embracing their identity that they don't really look like and all that stuff. So the movie itself was kind of like Imitation of Life before Imitation of Life. And, down the line, at least I got 3 other movies to go through first. I will talk about Juanita Moore's character in Imitation of Life because she was nominated as well. But we'll get to that later. But the topic of this video, and sometimes I'll do this depending on the theme of the video I am talking about. So with Hattie McDaniel's role in Gone with the Wind, I talk about why the Mamie trope is bad. And with Ethel Waters' character in Pinky, well, this isn't really about her character, but I guess the person who plays her granddaughter, Jean Crane character as Pinky, is going to be about, her. And some of the themes in these movies will be related to the Black discussion that we need to have in the community, or just something that, media-wise we could talk about as Black people. So sometimes there'll be a theme based on the movie I'm talking about. So it may not always be a movie review. Sometimes it'll be like a theme based off the movie I'm talking about. So, yeah, so this is one of those themes. So for the role or the movie Pinky, I'm going to talk about, and the title of this video will be Why the One Drop Rule Needs to Die, Go Away, Just Vanish, since yesterday. So it needs to be not a thing anymore. And basically, if anybody doesn't know or need kind of, clarification what the one drop rule is, the one drop rule is basically something, I mean, you can look it up. It's on Wikipedia, but to me, I'm not going to give you the professional definition. I make things as clear cut as possible. I give a paraphrased version of what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's whatever, but yeah. But the one drop rule was basically something that white people, especially white men, put on the books for, anybody with a drop of Blackness in them, they are deemed Black. So even if their great grandma or something is Black, they will be seen as Black if people knew about it. And why was that a thing? Well, of course, I talked about this in the Pinky movie, but like I said, white dudes back in slavery, Jim Crow laws, but basically this started since slavery. But basically since slavery, white guys couldn't, was phallically assaulting, the Black slave ladies, and forcing themselves on them. And sometimes out of that assault, biracials were born. So, and for some of those biracials, some of them were light enough to work in the house. And that's what we consider house slaves. I mean, not all house slaves were light-skinned, but, if they were a product of the master's disgusting nut sex, then they got a chance to be in the house. But let's just say if the white slave owner died and he had a will, and let's just say hypothetically he didn't have any actual kids with, a white woman, and the only child or heir that he had was with the slave that he basically phallically assaulted. That anything he owned would have gone to that biracial child of his. So, because that was, for white people, the worst case scenario ever, they tried to make sure that nobody Black in any way gets any wealth from white people. So, of course, they ain't gonna tell white dudes to keep their nasty dinglings away from us. So, to them, they just said, okay, if their mom's Black or if they're related to Black in any way, they're Black, and therefore they will not get any inheritance from the white person who they are directly related to. So there's that. So basically, whatever colored race you are, in this case definitely Black, you will be seen as that race. Even if it's very distant and you basically have more white relatives than not, whatever black ancestry that you have, whether it's direct or distant, you will be seen as that race, regardless if you look like them or not. So, so in the movie Pinky, Pinky's grandma, not her great-great-great-great-grandma, but her direct grandma, her mom's mom, is black. Therefore, Pinky is black. And once people knew who her grandmother was, they treated her as such. So, there. And when I get to Imitation of Life, I'll talk about, kind of the same thing. But, yeah, so that's the point of the one drop rule. Basically, if you had any black in you whatsoever, whether it's direct or descent, then you are seen as black. So, yeah, so back in the day, even if you were lily white, if you were like a quadroon, which is a quarter, or octoroon, which is like an eighth, whatever, if you were any of that, then you are basically seen as a black person. And you had to go to the black schools, you had to live in the black neighborhood. Now, the whole idea of passing is that if you can blend in with white society without anybody knowing who you're related to. And in small towns, sometimes people would know who you were related to. Some people would know, hey, aren't you that person's grandkid? Like, aren't you so-and-so's grandson or something? Like, if small towns were that nosy enough where they know who you related to, that could kind of ruin a person who's trying to pass this whole, thing. So for them, if they can pass and nobody knew who they're related to, then they can fit in with white society enough to kind of blend in and get the good life. And, and there are many books and movies and TV shows based on that. And honestly, if it comes to mind, I can think a drop of a hat. But, and I think the author's name, Nella Larson, and she made called Passing. And I think it was made into a movie with Tessa Thompson, Nega, and basically were the characters of the book, where basically it's about two women who were light enough to pass. And one, actually there was some, but the main two is kind of what it's talking about. One of them could pass, but she'd like to stay within the black community because she didn't want anything to do with white people. And the other one could pass too, and she used that as the way to live amongst whites, and her husband didn't know she was half black or whatever percentage they were. And, her husband's racist, so he didn't know. So she passed to live in the white society, and the other one could pass, but she stayed within the black society. So, she had the skin tone to pass, but she decided to, it wasn't worth it. So not every person who was light enough to look white passed. Sometimes they live comfortably within black society and was like, hey, whatever, it's cool. And I remember this book, and it was a TV movie too, Having Our Say. It's basically about the Delaney sisters, and those are two older black sisters who lived to be 100, like over 100 together. And they had a lot of siblings, but those were the last two remaining siblings, and they lived to be over 100, and they lived together. And somebody interviewed them, for them talking about their life, and basically they talked about all the, basically from when they were a kid up to like they were young adults and so on and so forth. And in the book, now in the movie, they kind of changed it a bit, but in the book itself, their mother, the Delaney sisters' mothers, was a quarter black. So she was like, even in the pictures, like if you the book is titled Having Our Say, and basically they have pictures in it, so at least they actually had proof of what their parents look like, which really helps. And not that the girls and the sisters themselves could pass, they were kind of lighter skinned blacks, but when you see their parents, their mother was literally a white woman. They literally was kind of half black, if you didn't know, but their mother was not a quarter, she was an eighth black. She was 1/8 black. Her mother was a quarter black, and then her mother was half black. And basically it all started when the Delaney sisters their white great and basically it all started when the Delaney sisters' great great their white great great grandmother was basically the wife of a slave owner, and so she was the mistress of the house, and she had a little jungle fever for the black male in the field. So it wasn't the usual, though. This was one of those rare occurrence where it wasn't the white guy, having his way with the black lady slave, but it was literally the mistress of the house having her way with the black male slave. So yes, the Delaney sisters' great great grandfather was the black slave who got with the mistress. Now and I know for anyone who's gonna say, oh, what if he assaulted her? Let's be honest here. Let's not act like women don't have any kind of power over men. Now, granted, yes, men could definitely force themselves, but in those times, let's be honest here. The white mistress of the house basically was, let's be honest, I'm trying not to get too graphic with this, but let's put it this way. I'm sure the mistress of the house kind of gave him an ultimatum. And the guy could have had a family of his own, but she was horny. He was there looking all sweaty and buff probably. And she was like, hey, come hither, boy. If not, I'm going to whip you or get somebody to whip you for you or whatever. So in a way, he had to do what he had to do. So yes, men could get, well, it wouldn't be called phallically assaulted, but they could get forced into sexual coercion too. Okay? Let's not act like women can't be assaulters. Let's not act like women can't do that too. Okay? Like I said, and who's to say that, the black great-great-grandpa slave couldn't have been underage? He could have been a 14-year-old boy for all we know, so. But basically, she had her way with him not just once, but twice, and that produced two biracial daughters. And this was all when the master of the house was away. And the weird part of the story, and this is the Delaney sisters telling the story, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but basically when the master came home, I don't know how long his trips was when, your wife could have her way with a black guy twice, but okay. But, and if you hear background music, that's my neighbor. But anyways, so basically the slave master of the house came home, basically, saw his wife with, two mixed kids. And instead of, kicking the wife out or doing something terrible to the kids, or, he, and what white guys would call him a cuck or a simp about it, but he took those girls as his own. Now, obviously, the black male slave, head for the the black male slave head for the hills, and I don't know if he got sold, he ran away or something, but he definitely didn't want to face the wrath of the master when he got home, for knocking up his wife twice. So basically that was how the blackness got into the family. So like I said, the Delaney sisters' great-great-grandfather was a black male slave who was probably coerced into having sex with the white mistress of the house because, she's a cheating floozy who didn't respect her husband. But down the line, the bloodline got wider and wider until the Delaney sisters' mother, who's basically, like I said, 1/8 black, she got with their very dark-skinned black father. So, nobody made a big deal about it. Nobody messed with them about it. They knew who, what she was and, whatever. So the Delaney sisters' parents got together and had a whole bunch of kids. It's like 10 kids, I think. And, the melanin came back in the family. Through their father, the melanin came back into the family. So, yay that. But the point of the matter is, that was during, like I said, the slavery / Jim Crow era of their time when they were younger. So their mother, even as white as she was still considered black. But we as black people of today, we still hold on to the one drop rule. We still kind of like, if anybody say they're black or they show a picture of their great whatever, then we say, oh, well, they're black, welcome to the cookout. Like, okay. I'm going to give 5 reasons why we need to get rid of the one drop rule, okay? I'm got 5 top reasons. Okay, it's based on my opinions. I'm not going to whip out the statistics or whatever, but I'm just going to say what's on my mind, why we need to get rid of the one-drop rule. Number 1, it whitewashes who we are as a people. Okay, it whitewashes who we are as a people. Look, every race has their idea of what they should look like. Now, there are a lot of, non-black other colored races, like the Asians, the Hispanics, the non-black Hispanics, and the Middle Eastern / Indians or whatever. They, some of them are, a lot of them are self-hating to the point where they want to look white themselves. But white people themselves at least have a definite look of how they want to look, okay? They don't just accept everybody as the face of whiteness, okay? And if other people have a standard of how they should look within their community, we as black people need to as well. And like I said, in movies and TV shows, you do see, like, okay, if there's a black, and this honestly happens with more black females than with black males, but sometimes you are seeing it with black males. But like I said, when there's a black female character or whatever, and, we're talking like live action movies, live action TV shows, they would use a biracial mixed chick, and they won't say she's biracial. They'll just make it as if she's black as anybody else, and she's the lightest one in the movie, so or the TV show, while the black guy remains dark-skinned and obvious. So so it whitewashes who we are as a people, because like I said, when people think black and they go to some mixed chick or somebody who's part black, then it's like, really? Like, really? And even, okay, and when I looked up and you're not going to find it, I hope you don't find it, like, when I look up the Wikipedia for all the listed black nominees of the Oscars, like I said, and especially in the supporting actress category, because I don't think I see this in any other categories at all, but in the supporting category, like I said, and I'll get to these movies when I get to them, but okay, in the 60s, there was B. Richards, who was nominated for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and in that same year slot, they put Carol Chaney in there. Now, if you don't know who Carol Chaney is, I mean, if you're a musical fan, she, the main character, Hello Dolly, and all that stuff, and her voice is very unique. You would kind of hear it. So, yeah, Carol Chaney is one of those old-time golden Hollywood actresses. I mean, she's already dead. I think she was like 90-something when she died a while ago. But she's part black. Okay? They say she's part black. Like, her dad's half black, but very, very light-skinned enough to get with a white woman. Because, let's be honest here, if a biracial black dude looked like Barack Obama or Shamar Moore or Boris Kodjoe or something, they would not let that near a white chick. Okay, they would not let that near a white chick at all. So, if there were a half black guy, they would have to look like a Logic or even a Derek Jeter type to be with a white chick, because at least they look passably white. But yeah. But, they say her dad was, Carol's dad was half black, and her mom was, I'm sorry, not her mom, her grandma, her paternal grandma was black. And she gave up her half black kids because they were light enough to pass so they could have the better life. And, and then, of course, he grew up, married Carol's white mom, and basically Carol's mom told her down the line, hey, if you ever get with someone, they might come out black because you are part black or whatever. But, of course, she didn't know science, so that wasn't going to happen. But basically, Carol Chaney's whole career was that of a white woman, okay? She never played a role where she was black in any way whatsoever. Not even the movie she was nominated in. So, I mean, her voice is raspy enough, maybe, maybe that's the only black thing about her is her voice, but let's be honest here, just even some old obituary of her dad or something, like, he didn't even look black, which, like I said, he was passy enough to where he could be with a white woman. So, and then, let's be honest here, And I heard this from another content creator. I'm not gonna say their name. Not that I hate them or anything, but if I like them enough, I'll say their name. Give them credit or whatever. But I heard this from a content creator who basically said when someone says that their parent is like, okay, if a passing biracial or quarter black, whatever, says that their parent is black, and we see that parent and that parent looks just as biracial or very, very light skinned, that probably explains a lot. And this is why we got to be honest about percentage of blackness, at least. I mean, yeah, okay, if you have a direct black, let's say you have a direct black parent, you have a direct black grandparent, at least be honest about the percentage of your blackness. Be honest about it. Don't just say black like, you're just black as me or something. Just be honest and say, oh, I'm part black. I'm quarter black. And it's like, well, that's weird using percentages, but it explains. It explains it at least. Okay? Because if you say your dad's black and we see a light-skinned, iced tea looking dude, or we see, who else? We see some biracial looking, and when I see Ice-T, I mean the rapper / actor Ice-T. He is. That guy. And we see how his family look like. He's already light skinned, and he's with a white chick, and look at his kid. So, yeah. So at least be honest about how your mom or dad looks. And this is why sometimes you say, oh, my mom's Creole, my dad's black. And that Creole is usually like a lighter skinned black person, like a black person with some admixture of French, white French, Native American, and black or something. So yeah, at least that would make sense of why you're so white looking, because your mom, your black-ish parent, is already light skinned and they got with a white person, and then there you go, that's a white person. And so yeah, so Carol was sometimes on the list of black nominees, and I'm like, look, I like Carol Channing as an actress, but no, can we not have her on the list? Yeah, you're not going to find her on the list now, last time I checked, but hopefully when I check it again, you're not going to find her on the list. And then another person, and I'm going chronologically, like this was in the 60s, and in the 90s, now this is, she's not black, but she's like Latina. She's Latina, but in the 90s, Rosie Perez, if you know Rosie Perez, like I said, the few Spike Lee movies she was in the beginning of her career, one of the original Fly Girl, all that stuff. So, yeah, she has that accent too, that Puerto Rican accent with that, all that stuff. Yeah, that's her. She's always the spicy Latina in every movie, okay? With that accent, yeah, that sassy Latina accent. Yeah, okay, I'm going too far. But, yeah, she was on the list because she's Puerto Rican. And here's the thing about Puerto Ricans. Yes, they could come in different races. And that's the thing about the Latin community. There are different races of Latin. Latin is not technically a race. So you have white Latinos, you have brown Latinos. Well, okay, you have white Latinos, the indigenous Latinos that still look Native American. You have what's called a mestizo, whatever. That's the white and indigenous mixed together. So they're like a lighter brown Hispanic. And you also have obvious black Latinos, and you have mulatto Latinos, the ones who look like half black, half whitish. And that's kind of where Rosie falls into it. She's kind of a mulatto-ish Latina, because back in the day she did have like kind of curly-ish hair. She did have some features and all that stuff. I mean, now today she doesn't. I think she just straightens her hair and doesn't look as ethnic anymore. But yeah, they put her on the list. She was nominated for a movie called Fearless in 1993. And I've seen the movie. I kind of like it. It was her and Jeff Bridges in it, and she was nominated for supporting. And yeah, they put her on the list of black nominees. Now she'll probably be in the Latino section. They have a Latino section for all the Latin nominees, all the Hispanic nominees, or whatever, no matter what country they're from. So she's on that list, but they used to put her on the black list just because she has that ethnic-ish look. And this is why we're not claiming the Latinos. Now, if they are black, like if you're like a Marla Negra black, if you are like at least half obviously black, like Ariana DeBose, Like if you see her without her straightened hair, Ariana does look black. So yeah, so she's half black. Yeah, Ariana DeBose she is. And as much as she doesn't want to say she's black, because she's one of those I know black Dominican, Zoe Saldana. She's black. And honestly, what spicy Latina role has Zoe Saldana ever played? Exactly. She's never even used an accent once. I don't even think in that Colombiana movie she used an accent. So yeah, she's technically black. An Afro-Latina, but still black. So yeah. So there are actual black Latinos, and then there's just the mixed, mestiza, mulatto-ish kind of black. Those are the ones who have maybe a black abuela or black abuelo in the closet or something. So they're not directly black, but they probably have some black descent that they like to not think about, because the Hispanic community is very colorist, very self-hating. They have a caste system within their country. So yeah, so the black ones are literally, they push to the side, while the lighter ones, and that's why they have that whole blanqueamiento thing, where they try to whiten up the race, because blanco means white in Spanish. So blanqueamiento is whitening the race. And another way is majarre la raza. Yeah, I took some Spanish class, so you know I could easily. Yeah, but yeah, majarring la raza, whitening or bettering the race. And their idea of bettering is whitening the race. So yeah, so Rosie is not black, okay? I don't think any of her parents are black. Her parents are probably like, looks just like her, like some mulatto-ish Latinos, Puerto Ricans and stuff. And like I said, we know Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Mexicans, and they don't like black people. So, you know, whatever. So not black, shouldn't be on the list. So next time I see her, I better not see her on the black side of the list at all. When I see 1993, I better not see her on the list. So yeah, Rosie Perez is not black. And then I looked down on the list at one point, and I forgot when her movie came out. I think it was either 2009. I'll put the correction if I'm wrong. I think around 2009, 2010 or something, when True Grit came out. Hailee Steinfeld, and we all know who Hailee Steinfeld is by now. She's Mary from Sinners. And she said, and look, I really don't care if they say it. They can say anything at this point, and we'll believe it. But she says her great-grandmother is some light-skinned black lady. So she has a light-skinned great-grandmother. I'm sorry, light-skinned black great-grandmother, and her great-grandfather's Filipino. So her grandpa, her maternal grandfather, is half black, half Filipino. And he got with a white woman, and that made Hailee Steinfeld's mom. Of course, Hailee Steinfeld's mom got with her white Jewish dad, and that made Hailee, and yeah. At most, I could say she's at least part Asian, okay? She does have the eyes. Her hair is kind of jet black, so I will say she's part Asian. She's like half Asian. But, and like I said, I don't even think I've seen a picture of her great-grandmother. And like I said, if they say they're black, usually you see the picture and their light skin is crap. Like, they're like super light skinned. Like, not even like, right, like you could tell black features. It's like Creole looking, you know? It's like, wow, really? And we're just claiming that. And like I say, and that was kind of a theme in the movie Sinners with her character. You know, she was 1/8 black because her granddad's half black, even though he was probably white enough to pass enough to get with a white woman that created her mother. And, you know, and she looks the way she does. And, you know, she wanted to be a part of the black community. Well, at least get with Stax or stay with Stax. So, whatever. And, you know, we all know the part she played. And, you know, ugh. And that, honestly, if anything about Sinners, and I can't wait to get that movie when I get to that movie. But when it's something about, when it comes to the lesson of Sinners, it's basically stop letting everybody into the cookout. Okay? Stop letting everybody in the cookout. I don't care if they're non-black, other colored. I don't care if they're some kind of black or part black or whatever. Stop letting everyone into the cookout. Seriously. So she was on the list because of her so-called light-skinned great-grandmother. But I don't see her on the list anymore as last time I checked. So no, Haley Steinfeld's not on the list. Now, I think she's on the Asian list. The list of Asians who's nominated. You know, she's like part Filipino, which is accurate. You can say that. But let's not say she's black. Because like I said, it whitewashes who we are as a people. And then, okay, and once I'm done with all the Oscar stuff, I will talk about other awards. So I will talk about like the Golden Globes, the Tonys at some point or whatever. And I remember looking through the Golden Globe list. And I think this was either last year, I think last year, Golden Globe list for TV, the TV section, because the Golden Globe has like movies and TV nominations. So that's going to be a long list. But for the TV section, for best, I think, supporting actor in a television series or in a TV special or something. Now, if you heard of the show called Adolescence, I think it's a good show. Basically, it's the story of a incel white boy who can't take rejection, and, you know, plot twist, he kills murders. And we can say murder, right? Murder. Okay. So we kill anymore, but we can say murder, right? Okay, murder. So he murdered his female classmate who basically rejected him because he, you know, as an incel white boy, he thinks every girl should belong to him. Or if I ask, you should say yes or something. So he ended up stabbing her. And his dad, the guy who plays his dad, the boy, you know, Owen Cooper or something, the one who played the boy, he won a Golden Globe for that. And I'm not talking about him, though. He's white. He's white. But the guy who played his dad, his name is Stephen Graham, I think. Yeah. The guy who played his dad, he is on the list of black Golden Globe nominees. And I'm thinking, that guy? Yeah. Because he's part black. Now, black guys, this is where it comes to you. See, if someone that looks like that could be on the list of black nominees because his grandpa's black and his dad's half black, basically he's what Drake's son's going to be if he looks like it when he grows up. He's basically what Drake's son is going to look like when he grows up and doesn't take care of himself physically. Because, let's be honest, the guy's kind of ugly, in my opinion, so ew. But he's part black. And he looks like that. So, yeah. You see what I'm talking about when it comes to the whole whitewashing of how we look? I think, and I know people are going to say, like, well, there's some half-black nominees on the list you're going to talk about. Yes, that's the least I will talk about. Half-black. You have to have one obvious black parent. Why it be obvious, I don't mean no Creole, no multi-generational mix where they're light-skinned themselves and they look like they're biracial. So, no. If you are half black and you at least have features that akin to that, then I will be like, yes, I will talk about your role in the movie, especially if you're not technically playing a white role. So, yeah, so in the back to the Oscar list, yes, there are some half-blacks on the list I will talk about. Some whose movies I will roast the ever-loving crap out of. But I will talk about it regardless as long as they are black. Well, half-black. Because at least that's half of your family that's black. So, yeah. So, for the features for me, I will say that I will, you know, like how you could tell somebody's black from me, because I know some people have different ideas about it. So hair texture, facial feature, and skin tone. One of those three you have to have, obviously, for me to accept that you're black enough. So your hair texture, it has to be some 4C, 3C something. It has to be where it's hard to comb your hair. The comb's got to sound like you're eating an apple when you're combing through that thing. Especially if it's dry and not moisturized. It's got to be like when you combing that hair, okay? So, yeah, hair texture. Skin tone. The moment your skin is looking like this and everything else looks white too, no. So, yeah, so skin tone. So you can be pale as long as you have an actual afro that comes from your black side. That's one thing. If you have like an off beige color that looks dark compared to a white person, like you look white compared to us, but next to a white person, you at least look a tint darker, okay, that could be something. Or facial feature, like I said, big lips, broad nose, just the overall facial feature. So yeah, So big lip, broad nose, all that stuff. But yeah, facial feature overall. So hair texture, skin tone, facial feature. If you don't have any of those that indicate your blackness, then you ain't black enough for me to talk about it. Sorry. So yeah, let's be honest about the percentage of blackness that some people have. Let's be honest about it, because if we're not honest about it, that's going to lead us to be whitewashed, okay? So we need to have, and like I said, we need good representations of black people on screen anyways. So, you know, for black women, definitely, like I said, I mean, yeah, I'm all for showing 4C, darker skin, obvious black womanness, okay? If the black men have their idea of what, I mean, let's be honest, black guys. Some of y'all, when it comes to light-skinned black guys, and not just like technically the mixed ones, but the lighter-skinned ones, y'all call them white boy half the time. So if those light-skinned dudes aren't black enough for you to, you know, allow you to represent, I'm sorry, if those guys aren't black enough for you to let them represent you in the media, then yeah, how about we not do the same for the females? Let's not use their light-skinned counterpart to represent us. I'm not saying they can't exist, but let's just call a spade, you know? Because I don't like the whole idea darker skin, more masculine, lighter skin means more feminine. We can be dark skinned and feminine all day long, can we? Exactly. So, darker does always mean masculine, and lighter does always be feminine. So, if anything, that kind of, makes lighter skinned black guys feel bad, because now it's like they don't feel manly enough because they're not as black as this Mike or something. So, sometimes that's why they get with a white woman half the time, because at least they're darker than somebody enough to look masculine in comparison. So, yeah, let's not do the light-skinned brothers like that, okay? Or even if they're biracial. So let's not do that. But overall, I know this kind of sounds off in tangent or whatever, but I'm just gonna say this. One reason we need to get rid of the one-drop rule is because it whitewashes us as a people. Because if we keep allowing every quarter, eighth, less than that to claim blackness, then there's going to be no blackness. It really isn't. So we got to keep things just, keep things obvious. Keep things clear. Once you hit less than half, in my opinion, you're not black. If you're a quarter black, you're not black. If you're a pinky or less than a pinky, you're not black. So, like I said, half black is the least kind of black I will say you are still black. But anything less than half, you are not black. That is just my thing. After half and you're a quarter at this point, no, that's not black enough anymore. So, no. Even if you mix with other races of people, that's not black. Because are they black? No, they may be melanated, but they're not black. So let's not, like I said, let's just call a spade and keep it moving, okay? So, one, it washes us as a people. Number two, why we need to get rid of the one-drop rule, it minimizes the racism that we black people go through. Like I said, I'm not saying lighter skin, mixed people, whatever, don't go through racism. Yes, the one-droppers back in the day went through some kind of racism. But at the same time, if they looked a certain way enough to where they could navigate and pass through white society, then, they're not really that black enough to really go through it like us. And let's be honest, sometimes they would breed themselves lighter so that their kids wouldn't go through it. So if their whole idea is to mate with non-black people so that their kids won't go through half the racism, then that should tell you that they don't really go through it that much either. Especially if they're doing everything in their power to not go through racism. For them, it's like, hey, as long as I look like this, They can't hang me. As long as I look like this, they ain't gonna mess with me. Like, cause how many lights, like, if you, and it's hard to watch, it very is. If you ever seen those hanging pictures of us black people, now I know half the time they will burn the body so you can know what they look like beforehand, but what light-skinned person was hanging in a tree? Let's be honest. What passing, not, okay, let's not say light-skinned. What passing person was hanging in a tree? Oh, wait. Exactly. Not a lot, if any. So maybe they got beat up or something, but then they weren't lynched, as far as I know. So yeah. So them going through their, like, they could say, hey, I go through this kind of racism, but it shouldn't overshadow the racism that we go through as black people, okay? We're not trying to win the Prussian Olympics, but we're just keeping it real. But yeah, like I said, it minimizes the racism we go through if everybody's black. And then there'll be some people who's like, well, I'm this kind of black and I never go through racism. And yeah, thanks a lot, genius. You're just proving our point. You don't because you're like that. But because we are obviously black, we are obvious the target. No one's gonna, like, here's the thing. If nobody knows you're black, they're not gonna treat you as such. Like in the movie Pinky. Nobody knew she was black until she said or somebody pointed out that she was. So that's why some people don't talk about it. Now, let's be honest. People will talk about it to, like, get some, points, some sympathy points or whatever, especially if they're not going to do anything to stop it afterwards, if they're not going to try to, advocate for, black rights and stuff, if they're not going to make laws that pass, anti-black hate crime bill or something, if they're just going to use it as a sad story, then no, it's like, okay, you went through this, and what are you going to do about it? Not protest, of course, because, you still benefit from your whiteness at the end of the day. So yeah, it minimizes the racism we as black people go through, okay? I'm not saying let's not validate their idea of racism, because every kind of anti-black racism is bad. Even the microaggression ones are bad. But let's not let it overshadow what actual black people go through. If compared to us, they probably have it a lot easier. Because like I said, how many of them could get pulled over by the cop? How many are them going to get pulled over like that? And I'm sure some cop isn't going to be like, hey, what's your great-grandma like? Like, they're not going to care. If they don't look like it, they're not going to get treated like it. Period. So, whatever. So, it just minimizes the racism we go there. Or, you know what? Let's use non-black other coloreds as well before I get to the next reason. And this might be a long video, so I might cut it to half, like a part 1, part 2 kind of thing. I hate to do that, but my show's about to come on and I don't want to miss it. But let's add non-black other coloreds to the mix. Like, you're Hispanic, you're Asians, you're Indians and Middle Easterns and whatever. They're considered colored, which is why I call them non-black other coloreds, because they're the other colored people who are not black. A lot of them are anti-black as well. A lot of them. Okay? And the way that some of them treat us, you would think they were white supremacists themselves. And they're wannabe white supremacists because they want to be white and they're total supremacists against us. So when they do things against us, black people, society can look at them and play stupid and say, well, how can they be racist? They're not white. They're colored. So, in other words, they go through racism too. Yeah, while kissing white butts. Okay? While kissing white booty. Figuratively. And probably literally, let's be honest. Freaks. But overall, a lot of them come here to this country, kiss white butt to get ahead of us, and, do everything they can to dismantle us, our accomplishments. And even back Sinners movie with the Chow family, the Cheese family. They had stores, one in the black, one in the white side. So then back in the 30s, they Asians and Hispanics had like leagues over us because white people would rather do this with them. And that's why all, non-black other, it's like the buffer class. They're the in-betweeners. They're not white. Hey, they're not N-words. Hey, we're cool with them. So they're like white people's lackeys as far as I'm concerned. They're like that like I said, the racist ones piss me off so much. I try to, as far as I'm concerned, they're like that like I said, the racist ones piss me off so much. I try not to cuss, but yeah, because they're colored, and this is why we as black people need to kill that black and brown coalition thing, because brown never cared about black. Brown likes white. Hence the blancamiento. They want not blancamiento, blancamiento. They are trying to whiten their race. They're trying to be like the gringos. They don't like black people. Let's get that through their fucking heads. So yes, they may be colored, and white people might give them the treatment, but that doesn't stop them from hating us. So inviting them to the cookout and inviting them to our little thing, like how the people invited the chows for the juke joint thing in Sinners, and we all know how the Asian lady turned on everybody else with inviting the vampires in. Yeah, see how that turned out? Shoot, if it's not Mary, instigating the whole thing, it's the chow lady, inviting them all in to screw everyone else over. So yeah, that if that movie didn't teach you, stop inviting everybody just because. So like I said, it's not just the whites we got to worry about. Like I said, it's these somewhat, these one-droppers, the non-black other coloreds, and even some coons in our community, no matter where they're from, because I'm not going to even discriminate if you're American or not. I don't care. If you a coon, you a coon. I don't care where you're from. But yeah, the point is, we got to stop accepting everybody as black just because. Like I said, just because you're not white doesn't mean you're black. Okay? Just because you're not white doesn't mean you're black. There are in-betweeners. And those in-betweeners usually gear more towards white. So if we... Right. And yeah, like I said, the Hispanics, the Asians may go through some things with white people, like the Hispanics with ICE right now. But guess what? Those same Hispanics will turn around and call us bayetes and the N-word and